Oh, I've got to go live in a second. It'd be so embarrassing if they all saw me just out of the shower like this. I'm already live. I gotta get ready. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Okay, there I go. Sorry about that, everybody. So, how's everybody doing today? I hope you can hear me okay, and I'm coming to you live from Austin, Texas. And today we will, of course, be talking about your hopefully upcoming language learning goals for 2021. So I can see all of your comments here in the chat, and you're welcome to hit me with your questions. And I'm going to be talking today mainly about the Fluent in 3 Months challenge for anybody who's not familiar with it, and how you can emulate it yourself if you are on a very, very, very tight budget and you want to try and get into your own language project, and then how we can solve a lot of the issues you may come up with if you were to do that by you joining the challenge. So even if you don't invest in the challenge today, I'm hoping you'll find something useful out of what I'm going to talk about. And otherwise, of course, if you do invest in it, I'll tell you all about that. But even if you don't stick around till the end, and any language learning question you have, whatever it might be, I will stay as long as I possibly can to get through everybody's questions that may be related to your own language learning projects. So with that all having been said, I'm going to dive right on in. I got a little presentation I made ahead of time, and I'll see your questions as they're coming. So if they're directly related to the challenge, I'll answer them immediately. If they're general language learning questions, then I'll get to them in about 20 or so minutes. All right. So let me put up the slides and shrink down my head. Somebody say hello in the chat so I know that my sound is coming through okay, and that you guys are seeing this without any technical glitches. So tuck myself in the corner there. And yep, so how to have your first 15-minute conversation in 90 days. That's the general theme that we're going for here. So pull up that. All right, so like I said, at the very end, I'll answer all of your questions. And Tung, you can ask questions relevant to the challenge, and I'll try to get to them while I'm giving the presentation. And otherwise, everybody else, any other general language learning questions, I'm very, very happy to take today, even though for about the next 20 minutes, I want to show you a few things just to give you an idea of what the Fluent in 3 Months challenge actually is. So hello, Elizabeth and Sabina and Channel Umpty3, very good name there. Hi, Fatima, and hello again, Tung and Kayla. So I can see you all in the chat. Very good to see that. So like I was saying earlier, I got 2 goals for you today. I want to make sure you get something out of this, so I'll move my head out of the way there. I am going to describe the Fluent in 3 Months language learning philosophy to you, and what I was able to do to get into this learning method myself without having any external support. So you could potentially do that by yourself. And then I'm going to say how we've tried to solve a few problems with that by describing what the actual challenge is, in case you're unfamiliar with it. All right. So hello, Almero, and bonsoir, Mathieu. I presume in France it must be, I want to say 9 p.m. now. Am I right at that guess? It's 2 p.m. here in Austin. So yeah. Tung is asking how many times a year does a challenge happen. So I should mention the challenge is available right now for anybody. If you click the link in the description of this video, or if you just go to fluent3months.com, you'll see the course, and you can just click it there. It is only available until Monday, so just for the next slightly more than 48 hours. And then it is not available for several months. So we've already had people pre-book the February challenge. This now is available for people who want to start immediately within the next week for the January challenge. And then we won't be launching again for several months. So we tend to do somewhere along the lines of maybe 4 to 6 challenges per year. So it's a good question there. And you won't be able to join a challenge for at least 3 months. Probably not. I don't think it may not even be for 4 months. Not 100% sure on that, but you can, if you're interested, join in the next 2 days. All right, so hopefully that addresses that question. Corey is saying that it's been done twice, so good job there, Corey. And Shuckers in Kurdistan. Wow, we got a good selection of people. I appreciate you, Ashleen, joining me for the live. So hopefully you guys find this interesting. Like I said, I'm going to try and make it relevant, even if you don't invest in a challenge. And then feel free to drop your language learning questions, and I'll get to them at the end. All right, so let's dive into what is the Fluent in 3 Months learning philosophy, and how can you apply this to your own challenge if you are beginning whatever it might be, a language project or a New Year's resolution to learn a language. Well, what I found from my own experience, and some of you may know this already, I could only speak English when I was 21 years old. So learning languages is something I've gotten into as an adult. And I had a lot of challenges and things holding me back from being successful in learning a language. So I'm going to describe some of the differences in what I've done. As well as that, the Fluent in 3 Months blog has almost 2 million people visiting it every month, and we get a lot of feedback from that. We've been doing the challenges for many, many years. Even beforehand, when it used to be called the Add One Challenge, we were running that for several years. So we've seen a lot of what people do in learning languages and what works and what doesn't work. And ultimately, it all boils down to 3 major differences. And that's what I'm going to focus on in the video today. All right. So the very, very first one, I think, is the most obvious. And that is the language learning approach itself. So the very specific things you're doing as you learn a language. So generally, when we think of language learning, for a lot of people, this is what we visualize, that we're just studying books and filling out exercises. And it's a very academic subject. And the academic approach is what most of us would be familiar with whenever we think of language learning. And for me personally, I took German in secondary school, and I took it for 5 years, and it was very, very studious. So I had lists of grammar tables I needed to learn, and I would be given a list of words, but no real context or method with them. And it would be a very blunt approach, but it would be very studious or academic. And the end goal was to pass an exam. And that didn't work for me. I didn't have anything really to show for my German. And maybe a lot of people here who are watching today will also have this similar experience, that you've learned it in school, you put several years into it, and you don't really have that much to show for it. So that is a major problem in why a lot of people fail to learn languages, and it's this academic approach that they're actually using with it. So that's the approach that I had initially, but I moved to Spain way back in 2003, and I tried a few different approaches. I tried the academic approach again, even though I was just starting to learn Spanish. I went to a group session, a group class with other students, and I was the worst in the class. The teacher would ask me a question, and I would just hope it was a yes/no question and just say, "See." And they could have been asking me what my name is or where I'm from, and I was literally the worst person in the class. But eventually, I figured something out, and my entire experience in Spain transformed. So here's a photo I wanted to share with you. This is an image of me on the top of Mount Teide, which is in the Canary Islands in Tenerife. And it was a fun experience, and it's a great photo and everything. But when I think back on this, it's not just getting to the peak of that dormant volcano. It's also the people that I went up with. I went up with local Canary Islanders, and I got to find out more about the Canary Islands through them. They were good friends of mine because I'd been living there for several months. And the experience that I was living with my Spanish at this time was so transformative. It was so different. It was so enriching to my life. And it's because of this different way of looking at it, that rather than thinking I was sitting to do exams and I was trying to memorize things, I had a different learning philosophy that took in mind all of these means of like communicating with people. And in a nutshell, the big, big, big lesson that you probably heard me say this before, but that's really transformed everything about my language learning and that I've tried to encourage for other language learners is speak from day one. The way I got up to that point where I was able to have true friends in the language and go on a hiking experience where it was just me and everyone else was local Spaniards was speak from day one. Initially, it was a challenge because I didn't know enough Spanish and I had a lot of things I needed to work through. But ultimately, this has made it possible for me to speak every language that I have attempted is by just getting that momentum from the very start. It's what I really recommend for you guys. So, all right, that may sound great, and you might think speak from day one was easy for you, Benny, because you were in Spain at the time. You could just like go outside your door, and I'm stuck in quarantine, and it's a pandemic. I can't travel to the country. Well, I tried that for several years of actually flying to the country, and ultimately, I think you actually can get the vast majority of your most useful spoken practice by making calls to people. So not calls like this from a telephone box in London, but of course by Zoom calls or Skype calls or FaceTime calls with native speakers right now. And you may think that this is less beneficial compared to going to the country, but I would disagree with that because my own personal experience was that I moved to Spain, but for those first 6 months, I didn't actually learn Spanish. My success kicked off 6 months into the project when I began to speak from day one learning philosophy. But those first 6 months were kind of time wasted, if I'm being totally honest, because I gravitated towards other English speakers. And going to the country, even I know we can't, a lot of us cannot go to the country for at least the next, whatever, 3 or 6 months until we get vaccines and travel becomes possible again. But realistically, you just need to get spoken practice and you can do that online. And that means that maybe someday later, when it's time for you to go to the country, you can go there with momentum. So that's kind of really what I want to get into here is that you need to speak the language from the beginning. Now, that sounds fair enough. And if you're thinking of doing this yourself, I would highly recommend you check out italki. If you go to fluent3months.com/italki, just write that out, the word talk with 2 I's before and after, you'll get a free $10 credit for your first lesson. So we have a referral with them for that. But this is a screenshot I want to show you a couple of months ago of how I was using it to schedule lessons with teachers. You can see I've got a German lesson, an Irish lesson, an Italian, and a French lesson. And effectively, even though I'm in complete lockdown, I have not gotten on a plane for a very, very, very long time, like many of you. I am consistently practicing my languages. And eventually, when I want to learn a new language, I'm going to have the same approach. I don't need to go to the country. I just need to consistently speak it from day one. And so italki is what I recommend you do if you want to solve that. I have a lot more to say on that related to people in the challenge, but if you don't invest in the challenge today, then at least go to italki, book a session with a native speaker, and try to speak with them consistently, and that's how you're going to make very significant progress. All right, now before I get on to the second big difference, let me see what your comments have been coming in so far. So loads of people saying hello. Appreciate that. We got Arshad and I think I already said hello to Shakur and Bayan. It's your first time to experience the challenge. If you've already signed up to the challenge, that's great. I'm talking mainly today for people who haven't signed up to it yet, but feel free to drop your questions. I'll be doing live streams for people in the challenge. It's actually one of the benefits for them. Today's live stream, you can see we've got a lot of people in the chat who may or may not be taking part in it. But one thing we do for people who are a part of the challenge is myself and Shannon actually do very consistent live streams just for that tight-knit group. So there's not that many questions coming in, and we can really focus on people's questions and get them just right. So Bayan's asking italki, and thank you, Matthew, for spelling that out. And again, if you go to this link, fluent3months.com, I'm typing it into the chat so you guys can check it out, then go there and you'll find a referral for that free $10 credit in case you haven't ever used it before. I think that's only relevant for new students. Okay, so let's see what else you guys are saying. Corey saying, did Spanish in advance help stay on track and reach for goal? Very happy to hear that. Kevin, I'm a Spanish teacher. I'm hoping I can integrate some of this method into my classroom to make it more than just the standard grammar tables and such. And I've been a language teacher myself in a classroom, and one thing I would say that I adjusted for trying to make it a little bit more relevant than traditional classrooms is seeing what my students were actually interested in. So at the time I was most actively teaching English, my students were very young, like 6, 7 year olds, and they were really into SpongeBob SquarePants. So I actually made my lessons around SpongeBob SquarePants, and I took like pictures of his pineapple house and all of that stuff, and I kind of gave them vocabulary related to that, and then taught them prepositions. Was SpongeBob in his house or on his house, and that kind of thing. It just made it that little bit more relevant, and it made them actually want to have conversations about, they're passionate about SpongeBob, so they really, really wanted to talk about him. And I made sure they talked to me in English because that's the language that they were learning. So that's one thing I would suggest. If you can find what your students are interested in and make the lessons themed around that, they really want to have more conversations because of that. Okay, so let's see. Santos is saying, what is the challenge? So I'm going to go into detail about what exactly the Fluent 3 Months Challenge is in just a couple of minutes. But first, I want to finish what I was talking about before, and that's outlining the 3 biggest differences that I find are between successful and unsuccessful language learners. All right. So the first one we talked about already was the learning approach. The second is no precise goals or directions. So this is very important because this time of year, so many people have a New Year's resolution. And unfortunately, a lot of people with resolutions that involve learning languages are much more likely to fail. And it's such a pity, but a major reason for this is they lack precision. There is no specificity. They're not defining exactly what they're aiming for in exactly what kind of timeline. So we really need to fix that, because if I was getting into language learning and I just decided, oh, I'm going to learn Spanish, what does that mean? Like, am I successful if on December 31st I can say my name is Benny? I mean, obviously not. That's a very low bar. Am I successful if I say I learn Spanish? Does that mean I have to literally learn everything, and I'm not successful until I know every obscure word in the language? And I think that's also unrealistic. I was literally just tweeting today that I'm a native English speaker, obviously, and I just learned today that the tree that's spelled CEDAR, I'd read that before and I thought it was pronounced cedar, but it's pronounced cedar. I didn't know this until today. And, does that mean I haven't learned English because there's a pretty important word that I didn't really know yet? But no, obviously, I'm a native English speaker, but I'm still learning. So I think this idea that you have to absolutely perfectly know the language is unrealistic, because even native speakers do not perfectly know that language, whatever that language may be. Lorraine's asking, how long's the live today? Probably be on for another 20 minutes. Maybe I'll go all the way to the end of the hour if there's enough questions from people. So I'm kind of going to see how you guys decide how long I'm going to live stream. And if there's demand for it, if there's loads of questions, I might do this again tomorrow on Instagram and Facebook. So we'll see. But this is the only live stream I'm doing this weekend on YouTube. So anyway, the New Year's resolution is just so vague. This learn Spanish, learn Italian, learn French. That is one reason so many people fail. They don't have specificity. That guides how you're going to learn the language. When you actually have end goals and timelines to reach those end goals. So what does a really useful end goal look like in a language? Let me move myself up here. You know what? I'm gonna bounce my little head up. Look, boing, 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 boing. Okay. So I want to talk about the European Common Framework very briefly, because this is an extremely useful way to gauge what your language level is. And this is what I recommend, even if you don't join the challenge, this is what I recommend you take as your end goal as you're trying to learn whatever language that you're learning. So this is split up into 6 different levels. We have A, B, and C. And essentially, A's, these are the beginners. B's are the intermediates, and C's are the advanced. And within each one, you have 1 and 2, 1 being lower, 2 being upper. So we have A1, lower beginner, B1, upper intermediate, C1, lower advanced, if that makes sense. And what's great about all of these is this is the European Common Framework very precisely defines what each one of these mean. So generally what I try to do is I try to pick one of these that might be realistic for me to reach within whatever timeline. I happen to prefer 3 months. I think it's the Goldilocks zone of it's not too big and it's not too small, you know, because 6 months, you can achieve a lot more in 6 months, but it might be a little bit too distant for you to like have an achievable goal for now. But maybe you decide I'm going to study for the next 6 months, and you split that up. It doesn't have to be into 3 month segments. It could be into 2 month segments, but 3 months just happens to be the sweet spot for me. And in case you're wondering, boring, B2 is the level that a lot of polyglots agree is where fluency begins. This is where you can have conversations and the conversations flow naturally and you're socially equivalent. You can exist in social situations like you would in your mother tongue. All right. So the C levels like this, C1 and C2. So I have a C2 diploma in Spanish. This is from the Instituto Cervantes, their highest level diploma. I have that. And to be honest, it's not a very good objective to aim for most people. Sounds great, and ideally, like, oh, everybody would speak C2. Yeah, ideally. But realistically, C levels are when you want to work in a very specific field. So I can work as an electronic engineer in Spanish. And to be honest, after I've kind of focused more on making friends and having a social life in Spain, the C levels, it's been great. I'm very glad I've reached those levels. I'm very proud of reaching those levels. But realistically, the B levels is what I feel is much more important to prioritize. And what's great here, having this kind of understanding of, you know, I'm aiming for B2, is you have a certain acceptance that there are things that you're not going to be able to do. Like at the C levels, you would know very advanced vocabulary. You might be able to have arguments about, you know, epistemology with somebody, and you're okay with not being able to do that at these levels. So realistically, I try to aim for B2 whenever possible if I'm doing it intensively. But I have a lot of language learning experience over the years, so generally I tell people that if you are getting into a 3-month project, this B1 level and definitely the A2 level, these two are realistic for you to reach within a 3-month span. It depends on a lot of factors. That 3 months can mean a lot of things. It depends on how many hours you're putting in each day, because, you know, 3 months of 1 hour a day versus 3 months of 6 hours a day are obviously two very different sets of 3 months. But generally, this is what I try to focus on with people. And then the next thing when it comes to precision, and then I'll look and see what questions you guys have been asking, is the timeline. So I kind of touched on this briefly, the 3 months. So if you have one of those objectives, whether it be A2 or B1 or B2, ideally, if you're not super experienced, you'd aim for B2 when you've already reached one of the lower levels. The thing is, I really find 3 months to be a sweet spot. This is what the title of the blog, Fluent in 3 Months, has come from. It's not to try to guarantee anything to people. It's not trying to say you will definitely all reach fluency in 3 months. It's about the specificity that you have to have a specific goal. And if I'm starting a new language, my specific goal is that B2 level of fluency that I can aim for because I've got the previous experiences. And anyone who's new to this, generally I try to get them to aim for conversational in 3 months. Conversational being, looking back again, this, since you guys like the bouncy animations, boing, boing, boing. this B2 level right here. This is what I think is realistic for a lot of people in 3 intensive months. So intensive months means it's a very big priority for you. And this is where I think it's realistic for most people if you have a lot of other things going on. If you have a family that you're supporting and that takes a lot of your time and attention away, this is something realistic within 3 months. And then you can aim for one of these in one of your upcoming projects. But I don't tend to recommend people who are getting started with languages aim for B2 in 3 months. This is only something I think is realistic when you've had some serious experience. All right. So before I go on to the final biggest difference, let's see what you guys have been saying. Me bouncing around was like a Monty Python sketch. And now for something completely different. Whee! Yeah. I can have a lot of fun with that. I don't know if you guys saw at the start, but I always like having fun with these videos. So at the start, I was like, "Oh no, I'm getting ready. Will they all see me? I don't know if I have to like freshen myself up before this live stream." So I always like to throw a little fun visual effects on, like I just did there. Anyway, I know that's not relevant to what you guys are trying to get ask me here today. Ayrton says, surely it depends on the language. That's a really good point. And I know this comes up quite a lot that people say comparatively, if I was learning Spanish versus if I was learning Japanese, then, everything changes. But I have a controversial opinion on this, and this is not something you'll find most polyglots would absolutely agree with. But what I found is it depends not so much on the language that you're learning and the difference between that language and your mother tongue, but how much you care about it. And as an example, I once met a Spaniard and they had to learn, or they were learning two languages, French and Japanese. And they told me something that blew my mind. This was like a very long time ago when I was first getting into languages. He told me that he found Japanese easier to learn than French. And this just doesn't compute because French and Spanish are both Romance languages. They share a lot of common vocabulary. The grammar is very similar. So it just didn't make sense. Like, why would Japanese be easier? And I asked him this, like, why? Like, given all these similarities and everything. And he said he didn't care about learning French. He just had to learn French for school. Whereas he was just so passionate about Japanese culture and he found Japanese girls to be cute and he really liked anime and manga and he dreamed of moving to Japan one day. And this changed the context completely, that he made a lot of progress in Japanese, a lot more than he did in his French. And whenever people ask me, what's the hardest language you've ever learned? I tell them it was actually Spanish, not Hungarian, not Mandarin, not the Inca language Quechua. I've dabbled in all of these languages, but Spanish was the hardest one for me because it was the first. It was the first one. I didn't have a lot of good approaches. I lacked a lot of confidence, and I kept telling myself, you're an idiot. Everyone's laughing at you. Things that aren't true, but they held me back. Whereas when I tried to learn Mandarin, you guys can see this on my other YouTube channel. I share my progress in Mandarin. I reached conversational level in about the 3 to 4 month mark, and you can see me share those videos online. And it wasn't easy by any. It was a very, very challenging experience, and I want to get back into my Mandarin and really push it up another notch. But I got so much further in those 3 to 4 months in Mandarin than I got in 3 to 4 months initially in Spanish, and it's because my approach changed completely. So yes, you can put two languages side by side and say, well, this has harder grammar, this has gendered nouns, this has less words that it shares in common with my native tongue, and that's fine. That will be like on the micro scale extra work for you. But what makes languages truly easy or hard is how passionate you are about them. And like I said, a lot of polyglots will have a different opinion on this compared to me, but that's what I feel. I feel like it doesn't matter which language you're studying. If you really care about it, then your passion is going to be what's actually relevant in making it easy. So, if people ask me, Benny, should I learn Japanese or Italian, for example, then I don't come back to them and say, well, Italian because it's easier. I turn the question back to them and I say, which do you care most about? Because that's what's going to make it more relevant to you. So I hope that kind of addresses that question. Let me see what else I can get to, and I'll try to get to more of them near the end of the presentation. Let's see. Okay, so a few general questions that I will come back to. Did I have 6 fingers? Do I have 6 fingers? No, not that I recall. I mean, maybe if I do this very fast, then it looks like 6 fingers. Ershad, if we're in level B1, how long does it take to reach C1 if we work intensively? Again, I don't know what your situation would be. It depends on a lot of factors. If I personally, given my language learning experience and the fact I've learned other languages successfully, and I genuinely intensively did something, then I could push B1 to C1 within 3 months quite straightforwardly. I have done this level of progress before. I don't know for you. It's very hard to give these prescriptive things, and that's why I think if you're getting started with this, I would aim for that B1 in the 3 months. If you're already at B1, then aim for C1 in these next 3 months. And you know what the worst thing that can happen is that you fall a little bit short and you don't get exactly to C1, but maybe you get to like a solid C1 on some aspects of the language and you're a B2 on some other aspects. And I always prefer to aim as high as I can, really push myself. And if I fall short, it's not like you've failed because you've significantly increased your language skills. Maybe you haven't achieved exactly that C1, but there's something to be said for pushing yourself. So I would see if you think it's realistic to try to push yourself along those lines. All right. Okay. And yeah. All right. So I'll get back to more of your questions near the end, but I want to jump on to the final biggest difference between successful and unsuccessful language learners, and that is accountability. So it's very easy to, especially nowadays that we don't tend to get that much exposure to other people, it's very easy to just kind of promise yourself, I'm going to learn Spanish intensively for the next few months or whatever language it might be. And you don't really have anyone that you're telling this to. You don't have anyone that you're trying to like impress or let down, or to hold accountable for what you're doing. And if there's one thing I'd say about academic approaches, there's one advantage, I think, to learning a language in school, and that is that there is accountability. We do have to have tests at the end. We do have to, pass the exam. We're motivated by these external factors. That's really the main advantage of academic approaches, is you're forced to produce something to another person, as it were. So this accountability is actually the reason, believe it or not, why I started the blog. So Fluent in 3 months was, I had been learning between 2003 and 2009. So for 6 years, I was traveling and learning languages, and I would try to have specific goals, and I would get lazy. I would push myself a little bit, but then I'd be like, who really cares if, I care, but who's going to know if I just don't study for the next month? I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. So I actually started the blog Fluent in 3 months for accountability. I wanted to learn languages with 3 month spans, and I wanted to share it with the world through my blog posts. And the reason I'm telling you this is because this is something that you can do, even if you don't join the challenge. And obviously I'm going to get to the challenge and its benefits shortly. But if something a lot of people do right now is they have their language projects and their goals that they share on Instagram. So if you're curious, go to my Instagram handle. I'm going to type it into the chat here. It's language hacking, one word. Just go to that Instagram handle and look at who I'm following. So I follow a lot of active language learners, and a lot of them post very consistently what their goals are, how they're progressing, their day-to-day, like they try to post, here's what I'm studying, or here's what I said in my most recent lesson. So this public accountability makes such a big difference. And it's why I started the blog initially, and nowadays it's why people share their posts on social media. And it's like, if you're doing this yourself and you don't do anything related to the challenge, like I hope some of you guys will consider the challenge today. But if you don't, then at least take that from the free advice I've been trying to give today, that you try to set yourself a goal and then share it publicly with the world and push yourself that way. So those are the three biggest differences that kind of all tie together, and what I found to really significantly change people's language learning approach. So hopefully these tips help you if you're doing this by yourself. And of course, I'll look at your questions near the end and I'll try to answer them if they're related to general language learning tips that I can help you with. But of course, I really want to tell you guys about the challenge today. So again, click the link in the description or just go to fluent3months.com and click the course. It's only going to be available till Monday, and we actually try to solve those three big issues. So I want to talk about that with you a little bit, but first, let me just change my sound settings here a little bit. First, I want to, like, obviously, there we go. I have plenty of things to say about the challenge myself, but I think it's better if you hear them from other people who have taken the challenge. So here's a quick little video testimonial to give you an idea.
To me, you teach bravery. It wasn't too long ago that I first heard your message. Before that, I had believed that I would not be able to learn a language just because I didn't have that gene and my brain didn't work properly, and due to that, I wasn't speaking French with my kids. Maintenant, je parle français avec mes enfants, et I think, especially Frankie, she's going to learn French, and that is a wonderful thing, and I thank you so much.
Hi Benny, this is Tiffany. I wanted to just say something nice about you real quick. For me, I've always loved your videos because you help me to not be afraid to make mistakes. And so it's just really been awesome. So I just want to thank you and say you've taught me a lot.
To me, you teach how to show up and enjoy every situation that you find yourself in.
I've taken all of your courses. I think you're just such an inspiration.
And because of you, I've been able to speak to my neighbors. I've been able to make friends around the world in a language I've always wanted to learn.
You've shown me what courage is, and you've shown me that I have more courage than I ever thought I could possibly have. And thanks to you, I'm now speaking 2 languages.
To me, you teach people how to get over their fear of mistakes so they can fully live and go after their dreams with determination. You remove barriers for people and you give them a clear path forward to achieving their largest goals. Because of you, I've been able to get outside my comfort zone way more than I would have before. I've achieved things I never thought I would have. And because of that, I have a renewed sense of confidence and a greater capacity for fullness in life. Thank you for all that you do. Keep it up.
So, pause that. So I didn't actually make this video, believe it or not. I didn't request these testimonials from these people. This was the Teachable, the platform that I host the challenge on. They reached out and said, does anybody have any messages for Benny? And they surprised me. There's a video online where you could see me reacting to all of this and just being amazed at the things people had to say about their experience with the challenge. So that'll give you an idea that this is something that's truly made a difference in specific people's lives. So I want to start talking about how we try to solve those 3 big issues that I've been talking about today. The first one is, of course, the learning approach. So I'm going to try and answer all your questions today, but obviously during a challenge, you want to be able to pick somebody's brains, like an experienced polyglot. When you run into a challenge, you want to know what would you do in this situation, and to have that experience with you throughout the entire period of the challenge. So that's one thing that we try to emulate is, firstly, we give you a course of videos that actually teach you the Fluent 3 Months learning philosophy. So we start with that these are pre-made videos that you can watch, but a lot of courses that you can get online will do that. They'll give you access to something that they can just scale up a million times and they're just videos that they can kind of set it and forget it, as it were. And I really wanted to do more than that. This is the Fluent in 3 Months Challenge is actually a community of people, and it's a community of people guided by language coaches. So one of those language coaches is Shannon. So you guys, if you happen to listen to the language hacking podcast, you would know of Shannon. She's the co-host in many episodes, and she's one of the most impressive polyglots out there. She speaks 12 languages. She has ridiculous routines that I think shows like how she's able to maintain these routines. She kind of helps share those tactics with other people, and like I am aspiring to have similar routines to her, so I look up to her in that sense. She actually has children she has to take care of. She's a busy and hectic lifestyle. She's a musician. She works for several other language companies like Drops. You guys may know the app, and she's just very, very experienced all around person. And she was the head coach that I wanted to take on. So you have access to asking her questions within our community throughout this entire process. She and I have been team members of the of Fluent in 3 Months for quite a while. I've met her loads in person, and she's great. So she's one of the head coaches. There are actually several head coaches who help people to make progress in their language, and especially after you've seen our initial training videos, you'll still have questions. You'll still be like, well, should I use this resource or this resource, or what do I do when I feel shy and I'm trying to speak the language to my teacher? Whatever it is, you'll run into these issues, and it's better to have your approach guided. So that's how we try to solve the language learning approach part of the problem. The next is the lack of precise goals or direction. So that's why the main thing that we guarantee everyone who joins the challenge, this is what you will definitely have. You will have a 15-minute conversation with a native speaker at a level higher than you currently are when the 90 days have finished. For a lot of people who are just starting off, this idea of being able to have a conversation seems like it's years of work away. But we guarantee you, if you go through our process and you check the boxes that we try to get you to do each day, and we check in with you, see how you're doing, if you keep this up, you will have that conversation by the end of it. All right, so 15-minute conversation within 90 days. Once you've joined the challenge, then you have a day 0, and we track how people are doing with, and I'll get to that in a second, but this is effectively what the whole challenge is all about. Okay, so the accountability is the next big thing that I think is just so important, and it's why learning in a community is so much better, that you have support from other people. And on top of that, you see other people struggling as well, because it can feel like everyone else is doing better than me. If you compare yourself to others, you'll see all of their successes and you think, oh, I'm such a failure, I'm a bad language learner. But generally, part of this challenge is sharing the highs and the lows. And you see people's struggles as they go through their language learning process, as well, going through the same challenges that you're going through. And that's why it's called a challenge. It's not the Fluent 3 Months guarantee of amazing easiness. It is a challenge to learn a language, and we want to have this challenge together. We want to be able to make progress as a team, as it were. So this is a full community of people who share their progress. So we actually have people upload videos, and I'll kind of have a lot of people in the challenge, but to give you an idea of the actual things people upload, we tell them to do a video on day 0, just to show the very few words you know right now. Then day 30, day 60, and day 90. And what's great about this is you look back on it later and you'll see how much progress you've made. And it's just amazing. This is one of the reasons I started the blog, was to be able to look back and see how far I've come. Because it's very hard to know that by myself without like having some external, like a teacher or something evaluate me. It's much easier if you're producing these videos in a very structured way. So to give you an idea, look at this. This is just a screenshot of, I just did a search for Fi3M challenge on YouTube, and you don't have to make them public to the world. You can make them public just to our community of people who also see them. These people just happen to make them public to the world, and you can see there are thousands, if not tens of thousands at this stage, of videos of people sharing how far they've made in their own Fluent in 3 Months challenge. So you'll be a part of that very tight-knit group of people who themselves are intensively learning a language. And you can see there's quite a lot of them. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of this experience and to guide people as they're learning their own languages and to see how far they come. And it's just something I get such immense enjoyment out of. So I really hope you guys would consider that. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you have about the challenge. But ultimately, this is what we do: is we're uploading videos. We have a tight-knit community of people who discuss how far they're coming. And then you have access to our coaches, so you can ask them very specific questions. I join in live streams. So this live stream has a lot of people. I don't know if I'm going to get to all your questions, but the live streams with the challengers are much smaller groups of people. So I can answer literally every question in as much detail as possible for everybody who runs into whatever challenge they happen to have. So that's kind of access to me and Shannon and the whole community, and we guide everybody. And like I said, it's a guarantee. If you go through all of this and you cannot have that 15-minute conversation, you get your money back, because this is our money back guarantee as part of the process. All right. So with all that said, it's a lot of components to it. So before I see what your general questions are, I guess the biggest question that tends to come up all the time is, will this work for my language? So this is not a language course. You can get a language course by going to your local library or just getting a book somewhere online. The courses are not the difficult thing to come across unless you're learning a very rare language. Courses are not the problem. The problem is solving those three big issues, and no language course tries to solve those three issues. So that's why this is a guided approach with teams. So we match people with what we like to call dream teams. So if regardless of what language you're learning, if you're learning one of the major languages, it's very likely to be somebody, at least one, if not lots more people who are also learning that language. We match with them as well as being a part of the main group of people. So you can kind of talk to two different aspects of the community, as it were. But if you're learning a less common language, we still find a way to match you with people who are learning something with similar challenges, whether that be in the same language family, or maybe there are two people learning two different indigenous languages. We might put them together because they have similar challenges, even if the languages themselves aren't related. And it helps us to guide people who tend to face similar issues, either with the same language or the same language problem. So regardless, whatever language you're learning, this will work for that. The Fluent in 3 Months approach has been applied to any language you can imagine under the sun. If it's a spoken language, because keep in mind, that's what this is all about. It's having that conversation. So I guess, ironically, I used to say this won't work with Latin. And then somebody proved me wrong, because I was thinking, Latin, you can't really have conversations so much. It's more of a written language. But somebody has used the Fluent in 3 Months challenge to learn Latin because they had a Latin teacher on italki who they progressed with. So amazingly, whatever language you can think of, this will work for that language. Okay. And effectively, the challenge is these major things. It's a video course to tell you about our learning philosophy, and then it's 90 days membership to the private community that's going to guide you in learning, and then entry to having our mini missions and the language challenges. And because there's so much work involved here, this is not just like, here's some videos and now I don't have to think about you for the next 3 months. You do your own thing. This is like our team of coaches is guiding all these people on a day-to-day basis to make sure that I'm covering their hours, because I have to pay Shannon and all that for all her hours. So this is actually something that we valued at over $500, and this is the very, very, very last time. This January challenge is the last time you're going to get it for this price. We're going to put the price up. I think we're doing either $350 or $397, starting with the next challenge we do in, it's either going to be March or April. So this is our very, very, very last time we're ever going to do the challenge for $297. All right. And again, that's because you have access to actual people who are putting their hours in, and this is their job, is to be your personal language coach to everybody who is in this very tight-knit group. All right. So with all that being said, I think I'm ready for your questions and answers. So if you want to check out the challenge for yourself, just go to fluent3months.com/challenge, or go to the website fluent3months.com and you'll see it very easily. If you have any technical questions, the Duke at fluent3months.com. This is Kidichai. He's our main technical guy. So if you've issues with buying and or like an error message or anything like that, you can ask me in the chat. I won't really be able to help you with that. But email him and he'll get back to you within a few hours. Even if you're watching this like when there's just a few hours left before the sale ends, he'll get back to you. And of course, you can see me on all these other like live streams or whatever. So I'll bring this image back up again later if you guys need it. But until then, I'm going to stretch myself out. And I think I'm ready to, look at this, the sun reflecting on my green screen. I'm ready to get into your questions, whatever they may be related to this challenge. I'm going to prioritize questions about the challenge, but I'm also happy to do questions that are generally language learning. And again, thanks everybody for sticking around, for watching this. I appreciate you taking the time, and I really hope 2021 is going to be an amazing year for all of us, that we can maybe use these next few months of quarantine. You know, the world's still going to be closed for about the next 3 months. So this is probably your best opportunity to take this time, really focus on something, and then the general population is going to start getting vaccinations and travel is going to be possible again by the summer, most likely, maybe. So I think it's better to take these next 3 months, if you can, to do a challenge like this. All right. So let's see if I can get to all your questions. Channel Umpty3, is this for absolute beginners only, or can intermediate level learners join the challenge too? This is we have two different versions of the challenge. The first version concentrates on people who it's their first or second challenge, and they're either absolute beginners or they're false beginners. False beginners meaning they have some experience in the language, and it's not that they want to have a basic conversation in 15 minutes, but maybe they want to have like a confident, like expanded conversation in 15 minutes. That's one group. But we also have Fluent in 3 Months Challenge Advance. So that's a separate branch of the challenge. You're still able to talk to others in the community, but that's for people who are really pushing their level up a notch. So you'll be learning with fellow learners who are also trying to get to a more advanced level. So there is a version of it for you to push your level up. Regardless of what level you are, we're going to match you to the right level of people. So it's for absolute beginners and people up to intermediate who are really pushing themselves towards advanced. So hopefully that answers that question. All right. Bayan says, my situation is I'm staying at home because of lockdown. I'm available anytime. So what level will I achieve in 3 months? So I don't know what kind of, you're available anytime. So that's great, because if you're not working too much, then like the challenge works for people who can put at least 1 hour a day. If you have 1 hour a day that you can spare for the next 3 months, you will make significant progress. So that's just like that's our minimum, that you will have at least a basic conversation within 90 days, the last 15 minutes. Now, ideally, if you can put more time in, if you can stretch that out to like 2 or 3 hours a day, then you can do more. There's no equation here where, you know, there's an exact number. The more time you can put in, the better, the more progress you're going to make. But at least 1 hour a day, that's what we recommend. All right. Okay. So yeah, if you're on furlough, then this is the best time to be able to do this. So I would, I don't know what your starting level is, what your target language is. There's a lot of factors here. So it's not possible for me to give a prescription of this is exactly where you can be. but you can make significant progress. I know that's not a super satisfactory answer, but you can make a lot of progress in these next 3 months. All right. So what else you guys got for me? Maria, what day does it start? I believe it starts. So we're closing signups on Monday. So I believe it starts within 5 days. So sometime, I think it's this time next week. I'm not 100% sure about that. It's either this time next week or Monday, like 8 days from now. So you have time to prepare a little ahead of time. You don't start it immediately necessarily. But you still have a few days of a buffer to kind of get your affairs in order, so you know you'll have that hour free over the next few months. All right, Santos, pretty glad you liked the presentation. How hard is learning French? How can you challenge me? I don't understand what you mean by how can I challenge you, but French is not special compared to any other language. French is a language spoken by humans. Babies learn it, toddlers learn it, children learn it. Every language that is learned by other humans is doable. There's no language on earth that is too difficult for you to learn, because millions of people have already learned that language. Millions of children and adult language learners, you may feel you're at a disadvantage, but if you look into it, you'll actually find adult language learners learn faster than children. Children take like 5 or 6 years to reach a conversational level in language. If you're doing it intensively, you can do it a lot faster than that. You can learn language faster than any baby. So French can have a bad reputation, and some people will say, oh, it's the hardest language. But then people say that about every language. German is the hardest language. Hungarian, Chinese is the hardest language. And ultimately, it's spoken by other humans. This is doable. So there's nothing specifically like that's going to make French harder than any other languages. Just get into it, practice it, you will learn it. All right. So the differences don't really matter for a project like this. Okay. So Sabina asks, when you spend 1 hour a day, what are you doing for that 1 hour? So generally, if possible, I try to encourage people to have their spoken sessions as frequently as possible. So maybe you might have it 2 or 3 times a week. During my most intensive projects, I actually have it every single day. I know that's not realistic for a lot of people, but if you're doing 2 or 3 times a week, then that means, like, let's say your next spoken session is on Monday, today's Saturday. So that would mean that your hour up until now is preparing to make sure that spoken session goes better. So this is the difference between my learning philosophy and an academic learning philosophy. In academia, you tend to just have it's progressing in terms of how difficult the grammar is. So you have the easy grammar at the start and the hard grammar at the end of the book. And I don't think that's a very practical way for most people to learn, because the grammar issues aren't what's preventing you from speaking the language. It's just a lack of familiarity and not knowing the things to say, whether that be words or phrases. So generally, I have a spoken session, and then in that spoken session, I'll see what are my biggest problems. Like maybe I'm able to have that initial, what I did yesterday conversation, but I'm finding I just can't talk about the future. I really want to tell them what my plans are. And that means in the hour sessions tomorrow and the next day or whatever between my next spoken session, I'm going to try and focus my energy on what my biggest problem is during my spoken sessions. And it puts your spoken sessions at the center of your problems to solve. So you can use a course, you can go through the course systematically. It's not going to hurt you. It's giving you exposure to other aspects of the language, but I focus everything around those spoken sessions. So what I do in that specific hour each day depends on a lot of factors. I don't have like a checkbox, a list of boxes I need to tick each day. It's more, what are the problems I need to solve to help my actual language learning sessions, the spoken sessions. So I don't know if that really answers your question as directly as you'd like, but that's kind of what I try to do. I don't have a list of things like I definitely use this app or I definitely use this book. That's not what this is about. This is about a more dynamic expandable approach that tries to solve problems as they come up during your spoken sessions. All right. How does the 3-month challenge compare to the Conversation Countdown course? The Conversation Countdown course is a 1-week intensive video course that helps you try to be able to have your first conversation in a language after a week. We don't guarantee that it's going to be 15 minutes, and a week, we make it an intensive week, but there's only so much you can do in a week. So if you really need to learn a language within the next 7 days for like a trip abroad, the Conversation Countdown course is going to intensively get you to that point. But you can't really repeat those 7 days over and over again. So the challenge is for 90 days. This is for significant progress over 3 months. There's so much you can do for a single week, and that's kind of the major difference between the challenge and the Conversation Countdown. All right. Douglas, is there any specific time during the day? No, because the community that you interact with is a community where you're typing your responses and you're clicking to check in, and you can do this anytime that suits you. We want to make sure we worked this to be applicable for people who are anywhere in the world. You might be in America, you might be in Europe, you might be in Asia, so you don't have to check in any time of the day. Once every month or so, we have a live stream that does have a particular timing to it, but we try to choose times of the day that are most likely going to work for as many people in that challenge as possible, so that you're not sleeping or something like that. But generally, the vast majority of things, you decide what your schedule is going to look like. All right. Channel up to 3, I've had conversations, watched movies, attended to patients. Is this challenge really for my level, or go for something higher? It depends. If you have a very specific goal, whatever your name is, channel up to 3, then this challenge may help you. If you want to like really hone down and get to a C1 level or something within 3 months, this may help you. If you more generally want to improve your Spanish, then I don't know if this may be the exact right thing for you. It implies a level of intensity to have a very specific thing you want to do at the end of it. So because of that, I'm not sure, like depending on your personal situation. Okay. So Sabina, do you recommend using flashcards for words along with speaking sessions? It depends on your learning philosophy. I personally do enjoy using flashcards. So what I'll do during a spoken session, if it's on, let's say, Skype, my teacher will type the new words that I didn't know yet. They'll type that into our chat window. And then at the end of our session, I'll copy all those new words into a spreadsheet and I'll convert them so I can use them in my flashcard app. And I do this consistently, and it's been beneficial for me. I know for some people, they don't like the interface of a lot of flashcard apps. And some other ones are very self-standing, so they work better, they look much nicer, but they only let you learn within their own vocabulary. So that's a lot less work. And if you follow some other course's structure, then that's fine. But ultimately, it's not something that I personally can personalize as much as I would like. So I find flashcards to be very beneficial. And of course, anyone who joins this, we teach you, we share all of the links and resources with you on exactly what is best for you. This is not a course, so you're not getting like, unit 1, unit 2. That's not what this is about. We will refer you to things that are ideally free. We try to give you the best free resources because you've paid to be a part of our community. So we want to make sure you're not spending too much more money after that. You still have to potentially hire spoken teachers, and that's something you have to do by yourself. This is for access to our coaches who are training you on a day-to-day basis. All right. Do we offer exams? We don't offer exams. We have what's our equivalent is at the end of it, you have to produce your video and you share that video with us, and myself and a team of other people check it out, and we decide one winner out of the whole challenge who'll get all of these extra bonuses like italki credits and such. It's a fun extra thing that we do, and you get free access to your next challenge as well. So it's not really the point for people to win the challenge, because we only pick one person. It's just like a nice little benefit for someone who has really put in the most work for the challenge. But we don't. That's not really an exam. That's just more us evaluating everyone's experience for the entire process. For exams, I recommend that you check out the official mock exams for European Common Framework if it's a European exam or European language. And then other languages have other equivalents, the JLPT for Japanese, HSK for Chinese. You find a mock version of that exam and you fill it out and you share it with the teacher, and we can guide you on how that might work. But this is something you would do yourself potentially. All right. Let me scroll back up, make sure I haven't missed any of your previous questions. I'll stay for about 5 more minutes. So hit me with your questions. I'll try to get to everything I can. But again, click the link in the description, or I'll bring back my link here. Yeah, since you guys like me bouncing around, let me do that again. So, boing. This link right here, fluent3months.com/challenge. http www bum 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 bum. This is the link you want to go to, and you will see the challenge. You can only get it until Monday. Then we're taking it down, and this is the very last time that you're ever going to be able to get it for 297, because again, it's at that price because you're paying for people's time of all of these coaches who are guiding you, and you're paying for the guarantee that you will definitely have the conversation. So you ask yourself if it's worth that investment to finally have that guarantee, to have people you're accountable to and people who are going to be helping you to get there. So yeah, check that out, and you'll see if you can sign up to it just in the next 2 days. Okay. Scrolling up to see if I missed any of your questions before. So the messengers report, a 15-minute conversation is done by participants of the 3-month challenge is reflective of what language level would you say? Well, that's the great thing, is that the 15-minute conversation doesn't imply a particular language level. It implies you have to at least have an A2 or beginner B1 level to have that kind of a conversation. Like 15 minutes, you can't stretch 15 minutes out with tourist phrases, which is where you'd be at a level A1. So you're at least at that level, but some people will progress faster than others. Some people are starting with a little bit of a head start compared to others. So that's why, you know, people who reach the lower end of that spectrum, they'll have like a 15-minute conversation that's a very beginner conversation. They're able to confidently move it along, but there's a limited number of things they're talking about. But people who are really pushing themselves will have a 15-minute conversation that might be a bit more complex, and they may, you know, have a disagreement with the other person, and that's fine. That's part of the learning process. So the range, it's not, this isn't about aiming that particular level. That level depends on your particular goals. The 15-minute conversation is in that range of like A2 to B1, but can be higher depending on where you're starting. Okay. Hopefully that addresses that question. Okay. Scrolling back up before I see your most recent ones. And thanks for all your questions, by the way. I hope you guys have been finding this useful. And I'm curious, before you leave me, let me know in the comments what your 2021 language goals are, because I'm very curious to hear that. I'm going to make a video on my Benny Lewis channel within the next, hopefully, week, where I'm going to share my 2021 language goals. So a few questions people asked, I think I've addressed in various different forms. Okay, so if you have more questions and I didn't get to them today, then I'll try to go live on Instagram tomorrow at about the same time. So that's Language Hacking is my Instagram account. So if you missed me today, just pop into Instagram at this same time 1 hour ago that I started today. But let's see, any final questions? Justin says, I'm in Prague, and the dialect in the capital is different to smaller towns. It's better to stick to the structure straight out of the books. That's a great question, Justin. This is a question I get a lot about. What should I do for learning dialects? And generally, I recommend, as a beginner, you want to be able to have conversations with the standard form of the language, because that's the one that covers your options the most. Like, for instance, Spanish has a lot of dialects. There's a lot of different ways it's used in different Latin American countries, and even within different parts of Spain, there's different ways the language is used. But there is a general, like standard Spanish you can get covered in a lot of books. So I would focus on that if you're a beginner. Don't try to worry too much about dialects. You can put a little bit of effort into it, but generally I would just learn the standard format. And when I'm confident as an intermediate level learner, that's when I start to take an interest in the dialects. I think learning a dialect right from the start can be very confusing because there are different ways that you have to kind of distinguish. Do I use this word here, this word there? Generally, there's one word that most people would understand, even if they may not use it themselves. And you want to be understood by most people. And on top of that, it's a lot easier to find resources for dialects that are tailored to people who already speak the language well. So try to get to the stage where you speak the standard version of the language. Like if you're moving to Quebec, Canada, I would still tell people, well, just learn, generic Parisian French until you're at an intermediate stage. And when you're at an intermediate stage, then here are some books for you that are written in French about the Quebec French dialect. And that's your best resources. It's very hard to find resources written in English about specific dialects of other languages. It's a lot easier when you've got a standard version of that language. So that's what I would say. I would just say learn standard Czech, and then when you're at a confident stage, then see what's the difference between Czech and Prague and Czech and other towns, and that's where I go with that. Okay. Any final questions? Kevin, hi Benny, Happy New Year. I'm a bit late to the chat. Surprising YouTube, your live stream came up. Well, I'm glad you got to join us. I appreciate that. And you're going to learn conversational Russian. Good for you. I really hope you succeed in that. And Ruth is saying that her goal in 2021 is A2 German. You can definitely get to that. That is a nice achievable goal for you. Shanghai Chengdu says, hey, I just wanted to let you know you inspired me to get help with ADHD. It changed my life. Well, thank you. I'm very, very happy to hear that. I'm going to make more videos on the likes of ADHD and how I've dealt with it. You guys may have seen I shared on the Benny Lewis channel. I've gone through my own personal struggles a lot in recent years, and I'm finally getting my motivation to learn languages back again after not having it for a period of 3 or 4 years. I'm going to talk about that a lot more on the Benny Lewis channel, so definitely check that out. And I really hope I can inspire more people, and I'm really touched that I've inspired you. So thank you for sharing that with me. Messenger's report is a challenge on a one-time payment. Yes, this is not a subscription. We're not going to hold your credit card and charge you $295 every 3 months. Nothing like that. This is just once off. You'll get these 3 months, and then if you decide to join another time, that'll be a separate payment, a separate sign up. So this is not a subscription. I promise your card is not going to be charged again unless you decide it's going to be charged. All right. So channel up to 3 is going to learn expand your Portuguese. Sou capoeirista e antes de chegar às minhas aulas de praticar, quero falar pouco de português. Oh, you're gonna have so much fun. I love capoeira. I learned capoeira in Escola da Bimba in Salvador da Bahia. I have pictures of me doing it online. One of the best experiences ever. And I can't wait to get back to Brazil and do that again. As soon as possible, I'm going back there. You could bet. All right. Laurie, is it possible to rewatch this video? Yeah, it's on YouTube. YouTube lets you pick the timeline and scroll it back, so you can rewatch it and you shouldn't have a problem. All right. So that's all I have time for today. If you guys have any more questions for me particular about language learning in general, then join me on Language Hacking, my Instagram account, at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, midday Pacific, 8 p.m. British time, and I'll go live then tomorrow on Instagram, and I'll try to kind of talk about the same stuff and answer any more questions. Otherwise, if you've technical questions, email this guy about signing up and all of that, and he will answer you very, very fast. I may not be able to answer you quickly if you were to DM me or anything, but otherwise, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate thank you, Jennifer, for welcoming me back. It's been a long time. I've been going through my stuff, but I'm very, very happy to have my language learning spark back, my energy again. And I want to share that with the world. And I'm going to be making a lot of stuff to hopefully inspire you guys to learn languages in 2021 and beyond. So 2021 is our year. Let me put the background back again. There it is. 2021 is the year that we are going to be boing, 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 boing. Oh, it doesn't work with the white thing behind me. Anyway, 2021 is going to be the year we succeed in learning our languages. So hopefully I will have inspired you. Hopefully you'll check out the challenge. And if so, I'll see you there. I'll be doing live streams with the challenge and be answering people's questions. Otherwise, best of luck to everybody who's learning a language in 2021. And you will see me on social media, and you'll see me here plenty, and you'll hear me on the podcast. So until the next one, happy language learning, everybody.